Thank you for joining us in singing Oesano's birthday song. Last month, we tried to answer the question, what's so special about Tenrikyo? The answer may be different if we ask different followers of this faith, depending on their experience. But how did we answer this question last month? Can anyone guess? What's so special about Tenrikyo? Anybody? Let's start with T. Yes?
It's always my birthday.
There's one. Okay. Yes, over here. Okay, the word was Pablo. Pablo. Well, I guess for different people, it could be different, what's so special about Tenrikyo. Other things are special about Tenrikyo. But we answered this question when someone asked me that question at the sushi bar. That was the story that I shared last month. This month, I would like to talk about obedience and about growing spiritually, advancing forward in our faith. Obedience is probably opposite of what American culture is about. American culture is more about individualism, innovation, and leadership, while obedience in America probably connotes slavery or sheep mentality where one just follows the crowd. But obedience I'm talking about is the one that comes about through spiritual growth, realizing that God's teachings are the teachings of truth, that we must put the teachings into practice to develop our faith. But even before that realization, we should put the teachings into practice, trusting in the parent of all humankind. People say, I'll believe it when I see it. But the strange thing is that even when they see it, they cannot believe it. I saw it, but I can't believe it. The correct proverb should be, believe and you will see. Believe and you will see. This is what is meant by being obedient to God's teaching, God the parents' teachings. A few years ago, a longtime friend and Tenrikyo follower, I will call him Lee, approached me and said, Reverend Owen, I've been having a problem with my neighbor. I was wondering if you could help me. Sure, what is the problem? My neighbor weed whacks and rakes his yard at 3 a.m. in the morning. He's right next door, so it's really loud. It causes me to wake up. I've tried to meet him, to talk to him, but his wife always gives some kind of excuse saying he's not available. So I explained the situation with his wife. But to no avail, I called the police, but they can't do anything. I guess he's not breaking the law. This situation has caused me to stress out, become angry, and start yelling at my wife and kids. I asked Steve if he has tried to connect with his neighbor in a good way by giving him some beer or pie. He said, yes, we've tried everything. I then said, this is what I do when nothing seems to work. We perform the 12 songs till the hand dance every day until the problem is resolved. Dee said, I cannot even do one a day. Well, I'm sure you can do this one, but it's just joking. Well, since you're not a head minister of a church, maybe you can start with 2 or 3 songs theoretically every day. Dee replied, I see. without ever saying, I'm going to give it a try. A couple years later, I asked him, how is this neighbor? How is his neighbor? He said, you know what? He moved out. Let me tell you, never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that he would ever move out. Ever since you told me that I should do the Tilbury service, I've been doing 3 songs Tilbury every night, me and my wife. The first thing that happened was that I was able to calm down and not get so stressed. Before I started dancing the 3 songs, I would wake up and every sound during the night and get so stressed and irritable. Now I can sleep through the night. Then one day I saw surveyors marking the property lines at my neighbor's house. I asked them what they were doing. They said my neighbor was selling his house. I couldn't believe my ears and ran inside to my house to tell my wife. We have new neighbors now. They're a young family with kids, and they're just fantastic people. They know me as a good guy through a mutual friend. They are so thankful, or we are so thankful. And thank you for your advice. Now I know the power of the service. It's not written here, but I think he became obedient to the teachings because he tried everything else to try to solve this problem. He became obedient to doing the service. Dee is now a head minister of a church in Hawaii diocese. Dee is a highly intelligent person, but he was humble enough to be obedient to the teachings and perform the Tilde service every day. Dee probably heard about our experience with our neighbor, which happened over 10 years ago, which may have prompted him to ask me for advice. If I may be allowed to refresh your memory, in this story, which took place just before we acquired the back property, back to our neighbor, we called him Mr. G, a singer and guitar player, often played loud rock music late into the night and invited his friends over for loud drinking parties, which included arguing and swearing. It was like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I wanted to call the police, but I didn't think it was the right way to handle the situation, especially since we were a church that also made loud noises as in our service gatherings and making repairs and renovations. We had power tools, so I couldn't get myself to call the police. I felt it wasn't right. In addition, he donated his empty bottles and cans for a recycling fundraiser. So instead of complaining to him, I decided to thank him for his recycling donations and gave him a 12-pack beer every so often. Of course, he was happy to receive the beer and be recognized for his donation, even though he would still continue having his drinking parties once in a while. It didn't seem as often. In June of 2013, we had the honor of the Shimbashira visiting Pearl Church. We have a picture posted somewhere. I don't know what happened to it. I think it's on the side wall there. They say
that when the Shimashita visits a church, good luck will happen to that church. And it happened to Pearl Church. The following month in July, tenants G and another tenant of the back property told me they had to move out in 45 days without any reason. Of course, when they told me that, I did not leap in joy. I said, "Oh, sorry to hear that." Although inside I was happy. Without really knowing whether we could afford it or not, oh, I said, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of us. In September, the realtor representing the owners came to inspect the property and told us that the owners wanted to sell and that she will be listing the property very soon. Without really knowing whether we could afford it or not, I said that we'll be very interested in purchasing the property. Then she asked that we make an offer as soon as possible. Of course, I have no idea how much it costs and whether we could afford it or not. But I said, okay. Observing how later that month we held a church rummage sale, and by coincidence, the realtor held an open house for the property on the same weekend. Observing how well our members worked together for the garage sale, the realtor later said to me that she had a good feeling and good impression of our church. She also donated some of her items for the garage sale. In pondering over the purchase of this property, I thought that if another person or family purchased the property, it could be decades or another lifetime before we get another chance. It was a chance we couldn't miss. From about that time, we started to do a prayer service consisting of the seated service and 12 songs Teodori every night at 7:30 p.m. After discussing the purchase, we decided to make an offer, which they accepted. It was a longer process, of course, but I'm just shortening the story. Later, we found out that the owner had two other offers that were much higher, but for some reason, the owner still wanted to sell to us. For whatever reason, it was a great blessing for us. Generally speaking, people can buy property if they have the money and the highest offer. But in this case, the owners sold the back property to us, even though they had higher offers. This is God's miraculous working. Well, in that case, we really had really no power over who the owner will sell to, but we decided to be obedient to the teaching by performing the service. And although Tenrikyo scripture does not directly address the word obedience, because there's no scripture that says, oh, be obedient to God. But it does imply a willingness to believe. In Mikagura Uta Song 6, we read, first, human minds are so doubtful. Third, the innermost of hearts all in the world, are reflected to me as in a mirror. We go like we had this whole hand motion. Reflected to me as in a mirror. Fourth, I'm pleased that you have followed to join the service. That means that it's not because I told you to follow the service, but you came willingly to join the service. Then the service is the fundamental way to salvation. Fundamental. That means the basic way. Whenever we're at loss of what to do, we always go back to the basics in our life, and that's performing the service. Always performing the kagura and totally in the future, I will work remarkable salvation. So even though you don't really know the meaning of the service, you may not really be obedient, but to trust in God and just do the service anyway. that God will grant salvation. In the first verse, it says the human mind is always doubtful. What does it mean to doubt God? I believe that everyone at some point in their lives has experienced what it is to doubt themselves, perhaps questioning whether their own judgment was sound. Furthermore, I imagine everyone has also experienced doubting others, questioning the truth of what someone says or the motives behind their actions. And then, too, there are those who have experienced what it is to doubt God. Is God really there? Where are you, God? I can't see you. Are you truly here? They might ask themselves, if God truly exists, why does He not alleviate the painful illness and difficult circumstances I am enduring right now? A doubting and skeptical mind is the opposite of believing. The more we trust and obedient to God's intention, the happier we become. Please consider being obedient to the teachings as a virtue in our spiritual journey. Thank you for your kind attention.